Once upon a time, not that long ago, a woman operating an accessories business on South Main Street decided to explore the dark and mysterious basement beneath her shop. She and her sister, using only a flashlight, searched until they found an opening which she described as being at least the length of the store. The sisters speculated that the opening continued beneath the sidewalk and the street, but they dared not venture further into the dark. 10 years came and went, and the basement opening remained unexplored, uninvestigated, becoming nothing more than a memory. But all of that changed the winter of 2018, when the woman returned to the site of the former shop. Her memories of the deep, dark, mysterious basement re-emerged, and in looking for answers, she turned to social media. Anyone know the history of the underground tunnels that are under Main Street? It would be nice to pass it on to the young people. And pass on her curiosity, she did. Her social media post rapidly gained attention, causing a surge of community interest in a secret or otherwise long forgotten subterranean past. Believers and skeptics alike speculated various tunnel theories online, and soon the Davidson County Historical Museum was contacted to weigh in on the conversation. Davidson County Historical Museum, this is Caitlin. Tunnels? Oh. No, I don't know about tunnels. We'll look into it. As it turned out, the museum was just as in the dark as everyone else about whether or not these tunnels people were talking about really existed, and if they did, what they were actually used for. We were curious, so it was time to investigate.
To begin research into the theory that tunnels ran under businesses and the streets of Lexington, we first needed to determine the date of when many of the buildings were built. Tunnel theories centered around the oldest parts of town, which we found to be built between 1880 and 1930. Thus, the search for primary sources related to that time period began. What are primary sources? Primary sources are sources of information that were made during the historical period that you are studying. Obtaining primary sources is an important part of doing historical research, as it will provide the strongest evidence in your assessment. One example of how primary sources were used in our search centers on a popular rumor which stated that many of the tunnels led to the old courthouse, where the Davidson County Historical Museum is now located. To address this, we used two primary sources. First, we used an old floor plan from the courthouse basement, which was excavated in 1918 during a major remodel of the building. As you can see, there are no indications of any tunnels. The second primary source we used was the building itself. After careful examination of all exterior walls in the basement, it was apparent that there was no evidence of underground passageways. Of the other primary sources that museum staff found useful, the source that provided the most information was Sanborn maps. Sanborn maps were detailed maps used for fire insurance purposes. Notice how just these two blocks change over time. This evolution of downtown provided clues to our own theory that we would later reveal.
Of the theories we read online, a few stood out. One suggested that the tunnels functioned as part of the Underground Railroad, a system of routes taken by those escaping enslavement and traveling to free states. This theory, however, is likely an example of a common misconception that the Underground Railroad was physically underground. Many runaways used the cover of darkness to escape and avoid being recaptured. However, there are stories of false bottom wagons and secret passageways, harboring those escaping to their freedom.
Prohibition-era American gangster Al Capone is rumored to have used the sewer to smuggle liquor and evade the law in big cities like Chicago. Following Al Capone's mafia reign, the entertainment industry has had great success making movies about organized crime. Public Enemy was released in 1931, the year the FBI finally caught Al Capone, and the original Scarface released in 1932. It begs the question that this cultural fascination with mobsters has played a part in cities across the United States developing their own local legends of criminals using secret tunnels to escape the law. Lexington's most circulated tunnel theory suggests that an underground passage served illicit and immoral purposes for the town's social hotspot, the March Hotel. In our search for the March Hotel tunnel, we found some truth within the legend.
In March of 1922, March Hotel manager J.W. Kepley was convicted of selling whiskey and conducting a disorderly house at the March Hotel. In the court hearing, undercover detective R.J. Scott provided witness testimony. The local newspaper, The Dispatch, reports details of the trial. Scott testified that on the nights of February 25th and February 27th, Kepley brought to his room 2 quarts of liquor and sold them to the witness for $5 a quart. The partly filled fruit jars were in court as evidence, Scott testifying that he drank and gave away the remainder of the Joy Juice. Scott also swore that F.H. Walker, traveling representative of a Philadelphia textile supply house, was in his room upon one of these occasions, and that Kepley also sold Walker a quart for the same price. 2 other hotel staff were also convicted of selling liquor and aiding and abetting. Kepley was fined $1,000 and sentenced to 4 months working on the roads. Though our findings did not confirm the existence of a liquor running tunnel underneath the March Hotel, they did confirm that illegal liquor was being distributed there. During our research, we were unable to find any reported cases of tunnels being used for illegal activities in Lexington. However, we did find an instance of criminal activity taking place underground across the street from the March Hotel.
One summer night, in 1918, a policeman at the March Hotel spotted a teenage boy breaking through the door of Smith's barbershop. The policeman crossed the road, followed the boy into the shop, and promptly arrested him. It was found that the boy had, the night before, entered the barbershop and stolen $6 and 48 packs of cigarettes from the Palace Cafe. But how did he manage to access Palace Cafe from Smith's barbershop? The boy gained entry to Palace Cafe by ripping the basement door screen, breaking the glass, and turning the night lock of the barbershop. Once entering the barbershop, he used a trap door to crawl up into the cafe. Perhaps he would have gotten away with it had he not returned to the scene of the crime. But when the young thief returned to slip through the trap door the second night, it wouldn't budge. It had been nailed down by the cafe owner, who had already informed the police, who were staking out the area that night, waiting for the robber to strike again. Now that we've looked into some of Lexington's most popular tunnel legends, it's time for part 2 of the video, the museum's search for evidence and the development of our own tunnel theories.
We looked at both evidence within the historic record as well as surviving physical evidence in basements in the Uptown area to get a better idea about the tunnel legend. What evidence is there leading people to believe there are, or were, tunnels beneath our town? And if there are tunnels, where, when, and why were they constructed in the first place? We hypothesized that if tunnels did exist beneath Uptown Lexington, they must have been constructed for practical purposes, because excavating a tunnel is a labor-intensive, time-consuming, and costly project. The likelihood of a system of tunnels being built for secret use is highly unlikely. The fact is, tunnels have very useful purposes, and we can confirm that tunnels beneath Lexington do exist. From analyzing several fire insurance maps of the Uptown area, we know that underground water supply pipes were installed in the early 1900s, somewhere between 1902 and 1907. Take a look at this 1929 fire insurance map. You can see South Main Street running horizontally through the center of the page. Look at the black dotted lines in the middle of the street. Those markings indicate 6 to 8-inch water pipes. That is the water main beneath the street supplying Lexington with water. Every building with a water supply is connected to the main line through pipes that run through small utility tunnels into basements and crawl spaces. So when we started exploring basements in the Uptown area, the most consistent evidence of tunnels we found were old pipes and the utility tunnels that carried them in from beneath the street. One theory we have is areas like these are former utility tunnel access points, small passages used to carry lines such as water supply pipes and maintain access to those lines for repairs. And when updates to utilities were made in the 20th and 21st century, the original connections were cut off and the access points eventually enclosed. Utility tunnels are just big enough for the running of the pipes. They seem far too small to be confused as a means of human travel, which is what so many tunnel legends conveyed. So unless there were wider openings in some areas to access the pipes for repairs, we were still kind of left with unanswered questions as to what these recessed brick walls and obviously filled-in areas in basements really were.
When the legend of the tunnels under Lexington was revived, fantastic theories were not the only topic of discussion. Many people recalled basement-level shops, such as barber shops and shoe shine shops, and the glass tiles in the sidewalk that allowed sunlight to shine into them. In more recent decades, the city moved the electric lines in-ground, updated sidewalks, and removed all but one surviving example of the glass tiles. You can see the glass tiles on the corner of the Army-Navy store and the northwest quadrant of the square. Though showing signs of age, the glass continues to allow rays of sunlight into the depths of the store. Our visit to the Army-Navy store basement confirms our second theory about what some of these spaces, confused for tunnels, might be. They are part of the original footprint of a basement-level shop, either additional storage and operating space, an entryway, or former location of the glass tiles. When the city made updates to utilities and the sidewalk, these features were removed and filled in. The green door facing Main Street in the Army-Navy store basement does not open. It is part of the wall itself. But decades ago, it led into an additional room which extended about 7 feet beneath the sidewalk. It was an extra room for whatever business was located in the basement. Many people remember when that basement was still in use, once operating as a barber shop and at another time as a head shop.
It's now time for a recap. Here's a list of tunnel theories we examined during our research and our ultimate determination about each one. During our research, we came up with two possible explanations for the tunnel rumors. First was that they were utility tunnels. However, this remains unconfirmed. While we did verify through Sanborn maps that there were water lines running under Main Street, we weren't able to find or access any that appeared large enough to crawl through, nor did we find any reported cases in the historical record of people using utility tunnels to discreetly get around or commit crimes. Our second possible explanation was that these were basement level spaces, and this was confirmed. We did find that in some shops, basement level floor plans extended beyond the street level storefront and a few feet under the sidewalks.
It seems to be the case that there are more answers than one to our tunnel questions. What may appear to have once been a tunnel under one building may be identified as something very different from what appears to be a tunnel under another building. We only were able to scope out so many basements in Uptown Lexington. So what about the places we missed? What answers might we have found there? And what about other urban areas in Davidson County, like Thomasville, who has their own set of tunnel legends? We certainly aren't claiming to have closed this case, but we are confident in what we were able to determine based on the evidence available to us. We debunked a few myths about tunnels under Lexington, but we also gained an understanding of where some of these tunnel legends came from and found that many are inspired by real-life events. That doesn't mean that myths, oral traditions, and public memory aren't important. On the contrary, they are worth further examination and can sometimes prove quite valuable to a historian. They tell us a lot about a community's culture, their traditions, values, and beliefs, and can serve as a guide as you continue to search for primary sources about particular historic events that have made their way into local lore.
Urban legends and folklore have just enough truth within them to be believable and enough mystery to keep us intrigued with the story from one generation to the next. Legends usually have a lesson and moral within them too. Rumors of a world beneath our feet urge us to stay curious, reminding us that there is more to this life than meets the eye, and encourages us to be better aware of our surroundings. Whether or not we have solved the mystery under Main Street, the legend remains an important aspect of the history and culture of Davidson County. We believe that the legend is kept alive within the old basement walls of shops uptown, and as long as they are there, the legend will go on.